Okay, so let's just start from the beginning. What was normal or abnormal about that performance from what you expected? And by the way, I have to share an experience, just to frame all this. I was really fortunate when I did my master's program at Colorado. We brought in Ingrid Jensen, and she is awesome. Those of you that were here when she was here a couple years back, like, so cool. Just great person, beautiful player, and wonderful to work with. And so we were there and we were doing a thing, and she was just like, when you guys, she's like, just play a tune, like you did at a jam session. So we played a tune, and she's like, have you ever guys like thought about trying this or trying that? Or the whole point for her was like, let's get away from what we think is the correct way to play it, and just let's play music where we're listening to each other. So we played a tune. It may have even, no, it wasn't this tune. It was like, I think it was Alone Together is what we played. And just, immediately she would do something, and me and the drummer were actually both very active listeners, and we would respond and listen and react and interact. And we were both comfortable enough that we could do that with the form. So that to me was a really defining, I was already playing in a way that could do that, but I was not, and this is not a level thing, but I was already playing in a way where I was listening and reacting, and it's always, I always know when I have somebody listening, when I play something, and they'll laugh, or they'll chuckle, or they'll be like, you heard what I was doing. It's like, yeah, we're talking about the same thing here now, as opposed to, wow, those are really cool licks you just played, man. That's like the last thing we want to do. So anyway, what was something that was perhaps unexpected from the beginning?
Not the head.
Not the head. We didn't start with the head, which was awesome, right? And so, what does that do for you as an audience?
It keeps us on the toes. We want to hear it, but
Yeah.
we love what we're doing at the same time.
Yeah.
So we're like, is it even going to happen?
Right. So you had the benefit of knowing what tune we were going to play, right? But sometimes that doesn't even matter. Sometimes it's just we just start and you're like, wow, that's cool. What are they playing? Do I know this tune? Can I figure out what tune they're playing? Are they playing a tune, or are they improvising? What is it that's going on? So, okay. So we broke away from that preconceived notion of this is how we play this tune, which is head first. Okay. Anything else that may have been unexpected or new for you, or different?
So as a performer, the first chord in this is a G, half diminished. So I played. That's what I played, which is also like the blues sound, right? And so that was the first thing that we jumped onto, was like, oh, we like stayed in that until we made it function the way it does in the tune, right? So that was the first listening that I felt like happened in terms of harmony. He heard that I put together this phrase that was kind of bluesy. He gave a root that made it continue to sound that way until he heard me go to the 4 chord, and then we were off together. so part of it is
listening, absolutely.
yeah, like hearing
Did you guys hear him go to the 4-chord?
Yeah.
And it was further reinforced because I went to it with him, right? And that's always a benefit. You know, if the bass player goes there too, then it's like, oh, I guess we're on the 4, right?
okay, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, Matt.
what got me though is you were pedaling on a chord, and I was thinking, where is that going to go to? Because it's past that 2-5, so
Right.
and it's going somewhere. So that got me. I'm like, yeah, that made me listen.
Okay, so pedal points. Notice that hopefully all of these things that we're talking about so far are exactly the same things that you guys would have dealt with when you were arranging a tune. Right? I mean, we are deconstructing it to find a unit. Maybe that unit that, you know, how do we play with that? I'm not saying that these are all completely conscious. I don't know that they are. I think it's more of a reaction in this setting. But when you're arranging a tune, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, oh, I really love this little phrase. Could I make that be the ostinato in the bass? Would that work? That would be cool. Or could I make an intro out of this? Or could we stay in this tonality for a while, and then we'll resolve somewhere? You know. And these are all the same considerations that you would bring into it in a broader spectrum, in a broader setting with like arranging a tune, right? Except for that the only difference is that we're not imposing exactly what we want to do. We're always listening and responding, if that makes sense. So there's this give and take. Casey, you have something?
There's like, in order for the listening to really happen and interact, you guys kind of stuck to ideas for a time and played with that until you realized that you were listening to each other, and then you just led more to interaction.
Yes, we
I think
refused.
repetition
Yes.
is such an important part of music making. Like, because I'll play on it, and I'll play a bunch of licks where I don't repeat ever.
Okay.
Ready? This is gonna.
I'm ready. This is gonna be fun. I'm
It's
sure.
gonna be awesome.
Okay.
Is what it's.
I
gonna
can
be.
hardly wait. Actually, already. I'm getting
Yeah.
excited. Okay, you ready?
1, 2.
No, two.
Can't do it.
That's
Actually, we
beautiful,
started
man.
interacting.
I'm done. I stopped listening after the first 4 bars.
Yeah,
Honestly.
but then by the end of it, we both were like, we started throwing in rhythms that
That's
were
right. That's right.
playing off each other by the last 2 measures. But I mean, I hope that was like fingernails on a chalkboard to you after hearing what we did the first time.
Because it's a different thing. It's a different thing. It's a totally different thing. And the thing is like, as a musician that plays this music, that's why I play it. Is to avoid that situation and to play it in the style in the first one. This is a personal preference thing on my part. However, he could do Ryan could do a lot of stuff like where he's playing some licks, but leaving space, and maybe not even doing repetition of specific ideas, but maybe a repetition of shape or repetition of. There's got to be some level of repetition somewhere, right? And that's what we were falling into at the end. Is that we're starting to do some repetition at some level, and I don't know. Can you think of any music that doesn't use repetition on some level?
And yet, what's the voice in your head when you're improvising as a student? Oh, you already played that.
Don't play it again.
Darn straight I did, and I'm playing it again.
What, you mean this?
Yeah.
We have a comment
Tell
over
where to
here.
go.
I was just gonna say, during the first thing you played, some of the parts that I liked the most was when you were still playing, but you kind of laid back a little bit and did a repeating pattern, but even while you're still playing, you gave space for the bass to do something interesting. Something cool.
So we have to be aware of when what we're playing is being supportive or taking the lead, or it's like in a conversation. Are you initiating something new? Are you supporting what's already been said? Are you leaving space for somebody else to talk? Those are all things that have to be present. We good in the second row? Okay, I don't really appreciate that at all. at all. If you want to disrespect us, you can just leave. I don't want you here if you're going to do that. Because what I feel like we are sharing right now is incredibly important. And if you feel you're too good for it, you can get out. Okay? Okay, thank you.
Well, I was just going to share, like, there towards the end, you guys are so aware of each other that you started moving it chromatically, and he followed you. And it was like, whoa, what just happened? What is going on? And it was like really exciting. But you wouldn't catch that if you were listening or aware of each other.
And were we at that point still playing the form? Oh, that's a trick question, isn't it? Sorry, were we at that point still playing the harmonic motion of the form? I'll let you think about it.
So I have a question.
Yes.
How much of your, I feel like two of the most obvious ways that you and I dialogue when we're playing. One is subdivision and or groupings of beats. Like if someone starts a figure in 3, we both go to that.
Right.
Right? Or if somebody goes do-do-do-be-dee, the other person
Shape.
comes into the triplets.
Okay, the triplets,
Right?
yes.
So the actual subdivision itself is a really easy starting point for interaction, I think. It's something you guys can actually practice in your rehearsals, right? Where it's like, are you feeling the 8th note? Are you feeling a quarter triplet? Is it the 8th triplet? Is it triplets grouped like this? It's a very easy thing to start to work on. And the other, so there's that, subdivision and groupings. And then the other thing is I feel like we're both super aware of actually contrapuntal motion.
What do you mean by that? What is contrapuntal motion?
I mean, is it, so I'm asking, like, do you think?
I
Like,
totally agree.
you hear
No, I
that,
totally
right?
agree.
Like, if one
But that's-
person's holding still,
Yeah,
that's permission for the other one to move.
right.
And if one person's moving, then that's an invitation for the other person to either go against that, to go with it, or to create a pedal
Right.
point, right? And
Right.
those are the options.
Right.
And we're very, it seems like we're listening on that.
Yes.
We're aware of that.
Yes. And so what does that mean? Okay. First of all, as a bassist, and I'm sure that all of you that are rhythm section players have faced this at some point, which is you have a role, you have a job to do, right? But the sooner you can start thinking in terms of melodic phrasing and melodic shaping to what you do, even within your role, if you want to live in that role for whatever reason, you know, it's and I'm not discounting that. Because I still feel like I played the bass here. I still feel like I played bass lines, but I feel like even more I'm playing counter melody. That's what I'm playing. All the time. It doesn't matter if I'm walking, it doesn't matter if I'm displacing time, it's always a counter melody that's going on. Okay? So yeah, that's I think contrapuntal motion is a really good, or contrapuntal whatever, theories or coming from that thought. I think that helps a lot. And
So I actually, when Courtney, what you noticed, when he went to the chromatic, ascending chromatic thing, when I went with him, I actually didn't like it.
Really?
I thought, well, I just killed the motion.
because then it was one, yeah. Exactly. It was
So
one.
then I went contrary, and it worked better. But if I had it to do over again, not only would I do contrary, I mean, this is what not that I'm thinking.
Next time.
Well, but I'm not, what I'm saying is I'm not sitting here thinking, oh, he's gone into this motion, I will now do this. It's more of a hearing thing, but I think if I had it to do it over again, his rhythm was also extremely oriented towards the downbeat, right? It was a half note rhythm. I would have syncopated more. So that's, when I think back to, it would have worked better if he was going B, O, B, and I'm going and that would have been even more.
Create that motion.
There would have been even more motion in that choice. But I'm definitely. But I mean, when we both felt it go parallel, there was actually. I don't know. Were you considering changing?
Yes. Oh, I was. Yeah.
Yeah, we both. I thought I'm glad you stuck with it because then I
had a chance not to. Could repent. That's it. I think just one other thought on that. Just another thought is that, you know, all these. This is so funny. I'm teaching musicianship 1 right now. We just finished like second species counterpoint, which all of you guys are like, boy, I sure hope I never have to do that again. But that's all we're doing. I mean, that's like, it's okay. You have to be aware. Is what you're doing at this point creating a consonance? Is it creating a dissonance? Is it moving in the same direction, in contrary motion? I mean, these are really basic, simple rules. But as I was reading through them, getting ready to teach my class, I was just like, these are like just the building blocks for good music. Like, just that's it. That's what it takes. Is good movement, good resolution, good points of tension, good points of release, rhythmic variety. All these things are all just the building blocks of what you do. And so the question is, at what point are you aware of what you're doing and how it affects that? Do you even think about that? Do you even consider that? Or are you so concerned with D minor 7, flat 5, G major, whatever it is? You know, I mean, I know we have a lot to think about. I totally get it. I understand that.
In the practice room.
In the practice room, that's a great place to do it. But what combo was it with that I talked to this week? Yeah, we talked about practice room Larry. Leave him in the practice room, man. Like, Larry's in there, he's like, man, you gotta go faster. Yeah, play this lick again. You know, like, great. Leave practice room Larry in the practice room and come to rehearsals to play music or whatever it is you're playing. When you're playing with other people, I really hope you don't have practice room Larry going, dude, play that lick. Remember that lick? Hey, you know, come over here. I got something for you. Yeah, it's not, you know, practice room Larry, he's got to stay in the practice room. And he will help you learn the things you need to master your instrument. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important that you master the instrument. However, he is not there to help you make music. Remember that. I think he's like your technical friend. It's like, you know, I think you need an oil change. Maybe you should check out the fan belt on this one.
So I guess one of my questions is, so when you played what we're not supposed to play, I really liked it.
Okay, so why?
Really good.
What we're not
So
supposed to play.
what do you mean by what we're not supposed to play?
You were playing the thing for new stuff, and you weren't really repeating anything, and you
Oh.
played a lot of
that one.
lines. I thought it was really cool. And
Okay.
Maybe it's the saxophone player thing, because we're like notorious. I know we are for like.
Let me just say this. It all worked. What Ryan was doing there, it worked just fine, and it was fitting fine, and I was playing fine, and we totally like went into a specific role at that point. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
However,
Do you want to hear it work better?
Yeah.
here's Licks 2.0. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
The new version, the newly improved.
The problem with what I played was there was no drum in it.
It was eighth notes. You know.
How interesting is that to you? You know? But if it's like bang, bang, that's a different thing, and I can use the same language to speak in a much more, and that'll open up.
Because
I don't even know what Aaron will go all over that.
Because what Ryan was doing is he was setting up a complete. It was all tension. There was no release. That's what happened, and that's fine. Again, which is why we released it like in the last 8 bars, because we couldn't do it any longer. It was like, this is just not, because there are ways of creating tension, and that is one of them. That is one of them, is to have a monotony of rhythm. And you will see that with a pedal point. That's what a pedal point is. It's like monotony of rhythm and tonality. It's not messing with anything. It is like bam, bam, bam. We are creating tension now because there is no movement at all. So that's what he was doing with movement, though. So let's try it again. This is a
1, 2, Jeez, that's like, to me, that's a whole different thing. But I'm still, now there's space, and what he plays changes what I play.
And I feel like that was really
What I
good
play
example.
changes what he plays, but I'm still using the harmonic language that I was using before. Like, it's still,
he borrowed practice from Larry's checkbook.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
no,
true,
that's what I'm
a
saying,
great
it's
way
like,
to- yeah.
you've got all that stuff that you put in the bank in the practice room, then spend it. But you don't have to like spend it the same way you put it in the bank, you know? You would never write the same checks for the same amount that you're depositing. Just use the information in the best way possible, so.
Yeah, and that was the other way that I like thinking about is Mozart. Sometimes it's and other times it's like, right? So there's a balance of like motivic material and then transition material. And that's actually a really good way to think of using, sometimes there were times in our first performance where he started walking the quarter note and I went into more eighth note driven lines, right? Because we hadn't had that yet. If all we do, again, it's a balance. The interaction and awareness of composition as we improvise is about creating balances between oppositions. It's a really simple way to think of it. So if all we're doing is
Transition.
if all we're doing is transition material is walking a quarter note and playing eighth notes, that doesn't really feel satisfying to me as a listener or a performer. And this is by the same token, if it's like there's a great conductor who calls like all the super contemporary atonal stuff that's like he calls squeak fart music. That's like if that's all we're doing too, it's like beep That's really cool for a while, but can you imagine like 20 minutes of that? No. Or like 14 choruses? No. Again, it's like choices that create balance so that it is thinking about the music composition as an entire organism rather than here's my part.
Yep.
That's how I would respond.
Sure.
I remember, Brother Nielsen, one time in a jazz class you were talking about how when improvising there's bricks and mortar. Is that kind of the same idea? Like bricks are like the motifs, and then mortar is like the eighth note lines that connect them.
Sure. Yeah. So you heard Brother Miller do that, like right? Just on his solo, he'll do things like bricks, and then right, mortar, motive and transition. We use different words, but I think that it's an organizing principle in all Western music, at least I'd say.
Okay. So how does this apply to you? How do you guys start? Is it so far removed from your reality and practice room Larry's too close that you just can't? I mean, what do you guys do? How do you do it?
I guess mine's more of a question than a response. Is that
That's
okay? Because I'm that person who's like, here's this chord, this chord, this chord, this chord, and I need to play guide tones, and I need to make this not play
Who
wrong.
says you have to play guide tones?
Well, nobody, but it's in my brain that
Okay.
that's what needs to happen. So how can I make sense of lines without having to think of like every single chord all the time? Because it is exhausting. I know I have to know them, but like I'm thinking more chordally than I am like melodically sometimes.
Let me go back to the question that I asked before, which was when we were doing that chromatic thing, were we still playing the harmonic? I mean, because and during like the whole thing that we did, there were points where we were not playing the changes.
Right.
Were we still playing the form? Yes. We were still playing the form. There were still 8-bar sections. I think if you want to listen to a recording that kind of opens up your ears to this, check out, I believe it's on The Shape of Jazz to Come. What's the rhythm changes that they do on that? There's a tune they do, and it's rhythm changes, but it's not rhythm changes. Like,
What was the tune?
I don't know. I just spaced on the name. I'm sorry. But also on any of the blues that he does, listen to how the rhythm section will come through it. They don't actually play the traditional harmonic motion. However, they're setting up points of tonic and departing from tonic, or points of resolution and departing from that. And they're still playing a 12-bar form, but it's not necessarily the harmonic motion that we have decided is the blues. Does or that we ascribe to the blues.
What was the group called?
This is Ornette Coleman's The Shape of Jazz Cup. So I will look. I'm sorry I've spaced on the name of the tune, but there is a tune on there. There's a 32 bar, and it's basically a rhythm changes, but there's no like rhythm changes harmony, which is brilliant.
You still know it's rhythm changes.
But it's rhythm changes. Like you listen to it, you sit there and you're like, I think they're playing rhythm changes. Like I mean, the first time I heard it, and then I was like, okay, so do I have to play exactly what the page has on it? And that's a good question. The people that wrote these jazz tunes, like how many of them wrote them are like, to be honest, if we were to play them in the correct way, like the way Cole Porter wrote it, is not the way any of us play it. At all. I don't even think we play the correct changes that Cole Porter wrote to it most of the time, okay? So you have to understand that there is a long tradition in jazz of these compositions being thematic material and then being made to fit what we want to use it for, okay? And in the last 50 or 60 years, we've moved beyond just saying, what things can we do to tweak the harmony? Or what things can we do can we play it quicker? How does this sound as a really fast uptune as opposed to a ballad, And in fact, I think, what is this thing called Love is a Ballad in the original musical? Like, really slow. It's just so, anyway. So that's the thing, is like, this is not Beethoven, this is not Mozart. We do not have to feel like we have to play exactly what's on the page. And who is it that determined what's on the page in the first place? That's my point. The Cole Porter changes are not the ones that we're playing. These are most likely the traditional changes that came out during the bebop era when the tune was brought into the repertoire as an up-tempo tune. Okay, so that's something to consider. Is do you what is this definition of correctness on this tune? Sorry, I don't know if I'm answering the question. I'm probably just babbling. But.
No, I think that idea of like letting go of preconception. Mm-hmm. It's you've heard Brother Miller talk about the beginner's mind a lot. That's what this is. This is like, I have no idea where this is going, and ready, jump, and so understanding everything that he said can be a doorway into you breaking out of habitual patterns of play. There were a couple other things that I practiced, Bregan, to help me break out. What type? Brother Miller said something super important and something that I really hope didn't sound new to you, but he said they were playing rhythm changes, but all they did was set up some sense of tonic and some sense of
not tonic.
Not tonic.
Hold it away.
How many sounds in harmony are there? There are two sounds, right? So like on this tune, for example, we both know this is cadencing on C major in measure 7.
Yeah. And so there are anchor points, right? There are anchor points. If
we know where tonic eventually is going to be if we're playing the form.
Did you hear that part that we did with the pedal for almost for a long time, and then we both resolved at the same time? And I believe Ryan even laughed because it was like, oh yeah, hey,
that's fun that way.
We did it at the same time. And that's why, because we both know that the function is this. The function is we are resolving here. It does not mean I have to get there by going this direct path every time.
So the two doors in the practice room that I would use if I were you to figure out how to get into this sense of a larger away and home. Number one is rhythm. Like sing a drum rhythm and make yourself put notes to it. Or take one of your favorite musicians who's like a master of rhythm and time and transcribe the rhythms that they played and force yourself to play your own notes on their rhythms. These are ways that will